Turns out the negotiations were short today as we look at Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Hello everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out, and find out if they hold up. We'll look no further for the season finale. I'm Hold Up with Kyle and Andrew.
How we doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks.
Yeah?
Yep.
You been busy?
I've been super busy, Dad.
I've been super busy myself.
With what?
Well, as you know, Kings of Leon released a new album this week. Yeah. So I took off work.
A whole day?
A whole week.
A whole week for work?
I've just immersed myself in their album. So I'm feeling pretty inspired right now.
Are you playing it like slowly over and over again, or?
Not slowly. I can't control the speed, but it's just on a repetitive loop all day, all night. I sleep to it. I wake up to it.
One song or all?
All of them. Just one after the other.
The only thing I want to know, Kyle, how's the energy level?
When you take your dog out to go to the bathroom and they have a little runny dog shit and like they're kind of squeezing out little strands of watery poop and you see them try to finish it off but nothing comes out, so you're like, they got it all done. Then you go inside and your dog, your 90-pound German Shepherd, wants to sit on your lap and you say, please don't, and he does it anyways, and then he gets on your lap and then smears his ass with shit on it all over your thigh, so you have to go and wash it off in the bathroom. That's my energy. That's it.
When did you do that?
That was last week.
So that's actually pretty good. Like, this is the best week you've had in a
really
very long time.
Really, really good. I'm rejuvenated now. I feel like my energy is just through the fucking roof.
Well, I know why it's through the roof, because we're doing the Phantom Menace today.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who doesn't know, Kyle is our resident Star Wars nerd.
He majored in college.
I majored in it, and I failed, but I tried.
But he majored in it.
It's sad you paid a lot of money for a degree that doesn't exist.
Exactly. They said I.
Do they have this on DeVry University?
Yes, it's called Degree in Spirit. Yeah.
So, the Phantom Menace, I think we have some of the best memories of our childhood wrapped up in this movie today. There was nothing quite like it as a child.
This was the biggest deal.
This is the creme de la creme. This was tip-top.
Yeah.
For that nostalgia, if you will.
Absolutely. Let's start, Kyle, with you. This is one of your babies. I think you've seen it also as an adult multiple times.
If you don't agree with this, fuck you. It's one of the better Star Wars movies that's out there. It has its really awful, atrocious parts of it, but if you get hung up on that, then you're not watching Star Wars for what Star Wars is supposed to be. This is not the movie you're going to watch if you're looking for a good dialogue or you're looking for masterful character development. It's going to come later.
You sure about that?
It's going to come later, and they set the stage for it. There are certain scenes in this movie that are so well done that they definitely hold up today to movies that have just come out with Disney, and they blow it out of the water in terms of like emotional investment. And we spend 3 movies really hitting everybody over the head about how he becomes Darth Vader and how he becomes an innocent boy from Tatooine into a murderer who murders children. He essentially caused the downfall of the Jedi Order for somebody who's supposed to bring balance to the Force. This movie is setting everything up for the grand finale, which is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which is also one of the better Star Wars movies that's out there. But there's a lot in this movie that doesn't need to be in this movie. And it really kind of, it makes it very hard for, I can understand for some people to watch this movie who grew up with Star Wars with the originals, and like, what the fuck is this? Why are we gearing this so much towards children? But we've talked about this enough on this podcast by now. Children drive movie sales, especially in the 90s. That's who's going to go see this movie.
Boy, did they drive the sales of this one.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is a juggernaut.
I want to start there, though. Like, it was different for us growing up in the 90s. And even my brother, like in the mid 80s, we didn't have Star Wars like the kids nowadays have Star Wars. We went 15 years in between movies.
Long ass time.
As kids, the only Star Wars we knew were the originals. And we watched the shit out of those movies.
Marathons, one after the other, lazy Sundays, just all the time. Yeah. All the fucking time.
Maybe you guys did. I didn't have the toys of the original movies.
God, I had everything.
You had everything?
I had all of the toys. Not literally every single one, but I had a giant tub dedicated to that shit. It was an ungodly amount of toys. I was very spoiled. I had them.
My brother had some. He's 7 years older than me. But I remember watching those movies, and they kept like redoing them on VHS. We kept having the special edition.
Special editions.
All the touch-ups.
Touch-ups, the oh my God. Everybody just chill the fuck out in the touch-ups. Listen, he wanted to make the movies better, and he made them better in some ways and shit on them in other ways, and that's going to happen because it's George Lucas, and he owns ILM.
Yeah. He created a whole process for Star Wars, and that's what the most impressive thing was. But that's what allured us as kids, is creating this world. And we could see that world. And we talked about this before. They did a bunch of modeling. They did a bunch of practical effects with that world. So when you watched it in the 70s, when you watched it in the 80s, when you watched it in the 90s, it transcended all those generations, and it captivated kids across 3 different generations. My dad wasn't a huge fan, but my mom was a pretty big fan of Star Wars. My brother liked them enough. My cousin was a fan. But we all watched them. My uncle showed me A New Hope as a child, and he's the one that introduced me to the movies. We went and visited him in Birmingham, and I remember vividly, he took me upstairs. He's like, hey, we're going to watch A New Hope. You've never seen it. And I think 7 at the time. I was just hooked. That was it for me. I remember the next week renting the special edition of Empire Strikes Back from the video store. And then once Empire Strikes Back
that's it.
Came into my life, that was it. I think we had a VHS of Empire Strikes Back, and I watched it so much. They had to the film came out of the tape, and we had to do the little pin trick where you put the pin, rewind it back in. I love that movie, and it's still to this day, I can put it on and watch from start to finish every time.
I could do it back to back, honestly, and find something else I love about it, especially now that they've touched it up, and Disney has done amazing work.
It looks beautiful.
I remember seeing A New Hope in theaters when they re-released it, because that was like in 97 or something. It was right before they released Phantom Menace. You talked just a second ago, Chase, about world building, and the world they built in this movie, wow. It makes me think of, wow, what other possibilities are there in this universe? Which is great because it's an ever-expanding IP. Why would you want to chain yourself and shackle yourself to the same thing over and over again, tell the same fucking story over and over again, which is the problem with the sequels.
Let's not get started on those, but
we can't. That'd be a whole other thing.
We promised ourselves today that we were just going to focus on Phantom Menace in the past. Yeah, we're not going to do it.
The world that they built it's beautiful. All of the Star Wars, when they're shot on location, they look really good. And they don't always need to be shot on location, because a lot of it happens in space. A lot of it's happening on starships and what have you, and alien worlds. But, this was our first foray into seeing a completely CGI world, Naboo. Yeah. Not completely, but a couple scenes in there, especially the Gungan cities and especially the plains, the rolling plains of Naboo, CGI.
I know I've been critical on CGI and green screen, and I know that they mixed it, but everyone has to remember no movie had attempted something like this before. So even though it's overplayed now, everyone's fucking doing it, and now everyone's so used to that they're numb to the feeling of movie making through green screens and CGI.
And it looks so much better than it did then. Now it does then. But
now, then it was such a spectacle to see with your eyes, like when you watch these movies, especially when we get into the Phantom Menace, that world. I was captivated. But do we remember when the first trailers hit? Do we remember the Star Wars mania? Because let me tell you, when Star Wars The Phantom Menace was announced, I think the whole country went ape shit. Maybe possibly the world went ape shit.
It was one of the biggest movies of all time. They marketed the shit out of this to make sure that everybody knew that, like, oh, we're gonna watch the beginnings of Star Wars, of the characters that we love. And we're going to do it, and there's going to be so much pomp and circumstance. This is going to be such a huge, huge movie. And it was.
How many different marketing campaigns were there surrounding this movie?
There were video games,
Legos, toys, like everything.
The lightsabers.
So
the marketing campaign was insane, and I bought into it. So this movie came out May 3rd, which they missed a golden opportunity.
They didn't really put the two and two together.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
As big as it is now. It's nerdy.
I remember it came out like a month before my birthday. So for my birthday that year, I was just showered in Star Wars stuff. I had a little bit of everything. I had the little tiny Anakin action figure. I had Obi-Wan. I had coloring books too. Just anything and everything. Like we weren't in school at the time, but like my mom, to keep me busy, would buy me a Star Wars coloring book, and it was just Phantom Menace.
I remember those books, the Star Wars books too.
Yep, they had like a purple cover on it and like some gold trim. That's all I remember. And
Don't
I think
touch the trim.
And I think Jar Jar Binks' dumb fucking face was on it. I think he was on everything at the time. Anything that was kid related.
I had all the Legos.
Yeah.
All of them. There's the Naboo fighter. I don't know what you call the big brown ships the droids were in.
Oh, I don't remember what they're...
But
AATs or something?
Something like that. There's that. There's some Gungan stuff. I mean, I had literally everything. Pod racers, you
Pod
name
Racer
it.
was the coolest part.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
Pod Racer.
PlayStation 1 was out at the time. Do you remember the Phantom Menace movie game that came out? That was actually pretty good.
I had it for the PC.
You had it for PC?
Yeah, I had the little like joystick that you plug in with the USB and controlled everything with just
It
that.
just breaks instantly.
Yep, it did break multiple times.
Put WD-40 in it before you could even play. I remember that game being really hard too.
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
I could never get past the droidicas.
Yeah.
Like the first level. They were so difficult.
So get this, kids. There was this thing where you could enter cheat codes. And my
Miss
brother,
those days.
oh my God, I know. My brother had somehow, because we didn't have internet. I don't know how he got these. I guess he sold his soul at school for it, but he got the codes to unlock the whole game. So we would just skip levels we couldn't beat. So I got to play the whole game, but I never beat any of it.
Nothing like cheating when you're underage like that.
Yeah.
Teaches you so many good lessons.
But back in those days, though, they released full games too.
Yeah.
So you didn't, you didn't have to buy the cheat codes. You were able to enter them.
They had a
Or
pod
unlock
racing game for the N64.
Yeah, and they remade it, or not remade it, but
Remade
remastered
They
it.
remastered
Yeah.
yeah. I had it for a while. It wasn't that great of a game. It was literally just a racing game.
Yeah.
It's literally just like Need for Speed, but in Tatooine with pod racers.
Right.
That's essentially it.
It was. I don't think I ever played that one, but I did.
It was fun.
I spent a lot of time in the Phantom Menace game. They did capitalize on toys and bringing it to another generation, which was a big thing that I thought about when we watched this movie. Was the good thing about these prequels, the good things in the new series, like we're not going to get into, but the good thing about that is
Keep saying that.
it reinvents this entire franchise for a new group of kids. Because no matter what, these movies are events to go see. You planned your weekend around it. You knew that when it was coming, you barely got glimpses of the trailers because they weren't just saturated all over the TV market. This one was different. I remember we saw this one all the time. But the event, the showing up in your robes, the showing up with your lightsabers. I had the plastic Darth Maul lightsaber and the Qui-Gon Jinn one, except me and my friend were sword fighting too hard with it. I think I stabbed him with it, but...
You can't stab with those. They telescope, Chase.
No, I went with like a hammer smash. Like I jumped in the air, broke it, and I think it like went in his like neck.
Good. Did he die?
He didn't, but I haven't seen him since. But I remember that being a huge thing, and I remember the talk shows around the time, the morning shows were like, here's a look at everyone that sold out the movie theaters last night going to see Star Wars. Here's
Lines around the corner.
Yeah.
People intense waiting to go see it.
Dressed up like
Dressed
they
up
usually do.
for
but
24 to 48 hours.
Yep.
Just to go see the movie.
just to see it, and to see it before the opening weekend, to see it that opening night. That's what we miss about movies now. That moment of that connectivity between a director, a filmmaker, and the audience. So I read a fact about this movie that I did not know. Kyle, maybe you know this. I couldn't confirm it, but I was seeing a lot of people talk about it out of their own memory, that people would buy movie tickets to go see the Phantom Menace trailer, and then they would leave the movie.
I remember reading about that
Yeah.
a while ago, but yeah.
Like when the trailer dropped, like we said, they just wanted to see the trailer. They wanted their first taste of that George Lucas lick on the big screen. They would go pay a movie ticket to see the trailer, and then they would walk out of the movie. Which probably boosted some of the numbers that we have for the movies that we... Batman and Robin probably.
Right. If there's no trailers on YouTube you're going to look up, or just pop on your phone on Insta or get on X and find... Like, it didn't exist, so you had to get creative. If you want to get a taste of it and remember it and see, like, oh, what... This is before Easter eggs. Okay, this is like, what Easter eggs are in there? There's no Easter eggs. This is Star Wars, and you're trying to see like, wow, that's Anakin? Wait, wow. Anakin was Darth Vader. Wait, he was actually, oh my God, we get to see what he was like before that. Holy shit, mind blown, goosebumps. And that trailer did slap because you're seeing a whole bunch of sword fighting and you're like, they didn't do that in the other movies. Damn, that looks exciting.
Speaking of how did this movie do marketing, Andrew, you got our plumpy numbers.
Oh, God, do I?
Yeah, let's hear those box office mojo stats.
Alrighty. Opened on May 3rd, 1999. Domestic. Do y'all want to guess what the total was?
$750 million.
$750 million. Chase.
I'm going to say 600. I'm going to say less than that.
Oh, wow. Daring. 487 million
Ooh.
and some change. Internationally, it was closer to 600 million. It was about 558. And then worldwide altogether, 1 billion and some change.
There you go.
It did hit the billion club, though, which is still super impressive. Domestically, that is a lot lower than I expected, which, to be fair, though, that was a different day and age.
It's 99.
Yeah,
you know?
So adjust for inflation, that's still a hefty.
Oh,
Still,
I'm sure we're getting close to 750,000.
For sure.
Or 750 million for today's numbers. But also, the reception for this movie after the first week was not good.
We'll get there. Do y'all want to? I want you all to guess the budget for this film.
Oh, it has to be $500 million easily. I'm going to guess anywhere from $390 to $480 million.
I'm going to say it's going to be surprisingly low. I'm going to say $290 million.
It's even lower than that.
Really?
115 million.
George Lucas, you bastard.
Oh, that's because of the CGI.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
That's what that is.
For sure.
I guess because he budgeted that out himself.
He did. And
So-
he put a lot of his own resources into a lot of this stuff. ILM, he owned that already. This is why there's such a big business. So that makes a lot of sense if you dissect it like that. Yes, because I was thinking about the locations they shot at in the Hagia Sophia and the fucking Moroccan desert and like all the different studios they had to make this stuff. Like, but then almost half of the movie is green screen. So there you go. That's
that makes sense. That makes sense. But that's still
$1 billion is
still $1 billion, especially in like the 90s.
I think it's like one of the highest grossing films of all time.
If you make $1 billion, you're in the top 7 right now.
I thought that I read on Wikipedia last night. You know, I don't know if you can trust that source completely, but I think it said second all-time grossing movie. That's a trophy to hoist high and proud. I'll have to verify that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's true.
People flocked to this movie, and they were ready to see it, and they were wanting it. They wanted to suckle at that Star Wars teat. I don't know if you guys felt this way. This was my Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. I prayed to see one in theaters, and this was my opportunity.
There was nothing about that movie as a child that I was like, that was bad. All of it was good.
Yeah.
Every single part of that movie was good.
I remember opening weekend. It was 99, so I was 8 at the time. And I remember bits and pieces of being 8 years old, but I remember that vividly. I remember that summer. I remember sitting in the theater and seeing it with my parents and just like not even moving.
Do y'all remember the first time you went and saw it? Like that night? Like what was going on?
Yeah, we went on a Saturday. I remember I was so still, and that's not really the case for an 8-year-old most of the time, but I was just sucked in.
I went for my friend's 6th birthday party, and it was like 6, 7-year-old kids, and we were freaking the fuck out.
Whatever chaperone had to take you guys, I feel so bad for them.
Sad.
You need to send them money now.
I remember
Me too.
I remember I got yelled at. This is the funny random memory. I got yelled at because I rolled down the window and told some dude driving next to me to stop smoking. It was a 6-year-old. And his dad was like, don't tell people what to do. We were just bouncing off the fucking inside of that SUV. Just uncontrollable.
That's a good lesson in life, though.
What a good dad. Don't tell people what to do. This is my car, and you're not even you're my son's third
He
best
didn't
friend.
even like me.
Chill the fuck out.
He did not even like me.
Well, Kyle, I think it's time, man. Let's dive into it. Let's talk The Phantom Menace. We've talked about the prelude to this movie, and that's us sitting in our seats and telling people not to smoke. But
don't roll down your window.
Start us off. Obviously, we're going to begin with the title scrolling screen, which is always like when that hit. I think a lot of people went from 6 to midnight. And that,
easy, like right away, just boom.
Yeah,
I
remember the theater erupted in cheers, but I'm not.
The same thing happened though for the new ones, and let's pump the brakes. It's just an event, so
again, a great event though.
It is it is, and again, why we go to the movies. But this title screen comes down, and we get the distilled version for all of you. There's a dispute with the Trade Federation, who is part of the Galactic Republic, and they are trying to gain access to, I think, a shipping route is what it is, or it's a trade route through Naboo, but they really just want to take Naboo over because for nefarious reasons that we'll find out later. The title screen rolls up, and then it has the very ominous space music, and all of a sudden we just see this cruiser going towards this strangely looking like a Death Star, but not a Death Star.
Ring around it.
The ring around it. But
it's like the Death Star they gave up on.
Yeah, this was Chase. This was before the Death Star, so shut up. They immediately go into the hangar of this giant Trade Federation ship, and long story short, it's two Jedi who we don't really know who they are yet, and they reveal themselves, and one of them's Liam Neeson, my fucking guy. He killed this role so good. And Ewan McGregor, who we've come to find out is
Obi-Wan.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan he also killed his role.
Murdered,
over and over and over.
Never stood a chance. And every iteration he has of this character, he further expounds upon it and just makes Alec Guinness look so good in those old movies. Yeah. He's giving him, and this is why we like this movie. So everybody who doesn't like it, shut the fuck up. So basically, the people on the ship who are controlling it are the Trade Federation cronies. And these are just a group of people. I hesitate to call them a race of people because they're Nemoidians is what they are. And they're mostly depicted as bad in this. And these guys are no different. And they also have a very strange way of speaking.
Very staunch, too.
Very strange way of speaking.
Yeah. Very, very staunch. They are very,
emotionless?
Yes, just a white sheet.
Huge bug eyes, too.
And giant
soulless, dark bug eyes.
And great practical effects for the makeup on those.
Absolutely.
Amazing practical effects.
But Andrew brought this up, too, and I know that's what you're probably about to get into.
Oh, yeah.
Is the
dialect.
The anime-style dialect that we work with.
Oh. Dorikas. Who are we trying to sound like here?
Yeah,
what are we trying to do?
And as a kid, you don't really notice it.
Yeah, I didn't think anything of it.
And as an adult, I was like, "What
are you going here for?"
Yeah,
and then we had a discussion the other day where they were like, "Who voiced these actors?"
Oh boy, get ready! All right, here we go. It was a white man.
It was a white dude, very white,
very white. When you're doing one dialect and it's for something where they're this race of people doesn't exist. This race of alien doesn't exist.
I will say though, this one, all the other ones I could pass on. This one kind of was the most egregious. It felt like this one was thrown together, make him Asian.
Yeah,
it felt like that was kind of what they went with because all the other ones have this language that they made up for
but
the
it's
character.
A mix of languages, you know what I mean? It's a mix of dialects. But this is very Japanese.
English. Well, if we're just let's talk about this right now. There, as far as to my knowledge, especially for the early Star Wars, there was no linguist on set to make languages like they do for Game of Thrones, like they do for Star Trek,
like they did for the Fifth Element.
For the Element, they did it's gibberish essentially. They make it up and they have words that mean other words.
Yeah.
But it's gibberish. But yeah, it's a little tough hearing that now when they talk, and you're just this just kind of sounds like you're just trying to do a really bad impersonation of, say, a Japanese person or a Korean person.
Andrew nailed it though. I said it earlier when he said it sounded like they were trying to do an anime character. It's a rough one.
Yes, Your Highness.
If it was in a made-up language, maybe we could give them another pass. But the fact that it was just
and also
English.
Just the way that the Trade Federation characters are perceived, they're made to look pretty stupid, honestly.
Well, I don't know if I'd call them stupid. The droids are stupid. They're also.
Have you ever been around any type of Trade Federation? It's pretty accurate.
But they are puppets that are
exactly.
They're just following.
They're following
blind
orders. Yeah. And here's the
I
deal.
will repeat myself. Have you been around any other Trade Federation?
The Trade Federation are actually the good guys. Uh-oh. If you follow the whole story from start to finish in the prequels, they are the good guys, technically, because they wind up fighting against who becomes the Empire. in the long term.
Yeah.
But they are being controlled by Palpatine at this point. We don't know who Palpatine is yet necessarily. We just know that this is a dark, shadowy Sith figure-ish.
Next up, we have our...
So they try to fucking kill the Jedi when they like, Jedi are here? Jedi? No, we got to get rid of it. And they're like, alrighty. So we're just starting things. There is very little slack in this movie. There is a lot of... It moves. It
hit
clips.
the ground running.
It goes. So they try to kill the Jedi. They try to poison them in the room. They go, hold your breath. And then before that happens, we get one of the quintessential Star Wars lines, I have a bad feeling about this, which I think they say a couple times in this movie.
Qui-Gon Jinn always looks at
It makes fun of him or gives him some
he's
shit.
like, we
shut
shut the
up,
fuck
bitch.
up.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much like, don't let your feelings control you.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
And if he did, maybe none of this would have happened.
We see them. So we see these two Jedi erupt from this smoke-filled room where they hold their breath, and there's just a bunch of droids out there, and they just massacre the droids. And all of a sudden, they send in these roly-polies, which when those first came out, I thought they were the coolest things.
Droidicas.
Droidicas
Oh my God.
First of all, I was like, that's not fair. They shouldn't have, like, why do they have shield? Like, that's not fair. And I was like, that's one of the first instances I was like, well, life's not fair, friend. You just have to fucking figure that out. And they just they're dodging and deflecting the laser bolts with their lightsabers, and that was cool shit because I didn't see enough of that in the originals, and that's when you really start seeing how different this movie is. And George Lucas, he really wanted to make sure the swordplay in this was entertaining. It's not realistic. If you're watching this for realism, you're not a Star Wars fan. This is not a realistic thing to watch. It's entertaining. The sword dance play style that they do is very, very cool.
It is.
It's very
and they did it themselves too.
Ray Park, who played Darth Maul, was he wasn't Taekwondo.
He was a stunt coordinator too.
He was a stunt man and a stunt coordinator, and he also was a martial artist. And he was, the perfect physical match. But the swordplay that was in this, like, they really wanted to separate themselves from the originals because you have to think about it like this. At that time, the Jedi Order was decimated.
Yeah,
there were still Jedi around, but they were in hiding. So there wasn't any like disseminating knowledge about this is how we fight with sword, this is how this happens, this is how this happens. Basically, you're seeing these Jedi just use their lightsabers in a way you've never seen anybody in Star Wars use them.
This is where we get to see the Jedi exist in their world.
Yes.
So that was really cool to me.
They get chased out of this little corridor with these droidicas, and you can see how incredibly adept the Jedi are at fucking shit up and doing everything because they have the light swords that are made out of plasma that can go through anything, and they're trying to get through into the command room where our Nemoidian friends are to try to like take over the ship because they were trying to go there to settle a trade dispute with
They were
them.
in peace talks.
They were in peace talks.
Negotiations.
So they just try to... You were right. The negotiations were short.
Thank you.
So they like, well, why the fuck are they trying to kill us? We got to go figure it out. They send more droidicas, can't get to the door. They get into one of these giant spacecraft that are transports that are going down to to Naboo. And they're like, well, we're going to figure out what's going on. And plus, they destroyed our shuttle. They murdered everybody inside their shuttle, those poor pilots. And they're gone.
Poor
That was
pilot.
sad when I watched it.
When I
was
watched
like,
that as
they,
a kid,
they all died.
when I watched it as a kid, I was like, oh my God, they're all dead. Fuck. There's a lot of that shit that happens in this one. So they get down to the surface of Naboo. And I think this is before we know it's Naboo, I think.
Some big green
Big
wooded
green
area.
planet.
Beautiful planet.
Very well
pretty.
shot, very beautiful. And they're landing these landing craft in here, and they're just trying to get to the surface because they know that the communications have been disrupted between Naboo.
They're trying to warn the Queen of the failure of the talks, and I guess like they're going to be like embargoed now, right?
Yes, and that's what they're trying to say that they're not doing. Essentially, there's a bunch of lying and like two-facing and political shit that goes on.
A lot of political lying, and then in between this time period, because I know that they're trying to get to the Queen, but they end up going to the underground world.
Well, if we're gonna do that,
Who does Qui-Gon run into?
He runs into some goofy little dipshit with two eyes on top of his head,
stupid
and some
fuck.
floppy
Are
fucking
you
ears.
kidding me? He's a Jedi.
Well, no,
No, he's a Sith Lord.
He's a Sith
Oh,
Lord.
he's a Sith Lord. Yeah,
We
that's right.
see Misa Jar Jar Binks. Fucking here we go. Okay,
Misa has
I'm
more
rolling
lines
my
in this
eyes.
Misa. All right, if we're gonna talk about the Nemoidians being a little racially iffy, this is very bad. Jar Jar Binks was played by a black man, and which informs his character's choices in a certain way, but he's also written a certain way that kind of sounds demeaning as fuck towards a lot of ethnic groups that might come from the Caribbean or from Africa.
Definitely
West
Caribbean.
Africa.
Definitely
Lots of Caribbean, lots of Jamaican. And like, he's just a hapless goofball dipshit. And
hapless is putting it nice. He's
he's
dumb
a
as
wreck.
shit.
He's a wreck.
Very unlikable.
He just...
And kind of pointless.
He's pointless in a way
that they could have used something
They could have used something else.
Yes,
But it
that's
didn't
my
have to
idea.
be him.
He's the main driving plot. He's the one that moves this entire needle along.
It gets things moving. It's a laxative, okay?
I'm okay with him moving some of the plot.
Great.
It just kept having to be him. It's like everyone on screen had to like look over and wait for Jar Jar Binks to enter the scene before the next scene happened.
And I also just don't understand why they kept bringing him along for certain things. It was like, he's just loitering. He is just awkwardly standing there. He doesn't need to be there.
No, he saved Qui-Gon's life, therefore he was in debt.
That's true,
So
he
Qui-Gon
was.
then saved his life, because I think...
You owe the life debt to this and this and...
But
gone with him.
Qui-Gon could have just been like, all right, you're through. Get out of here. I'm done with you. And then they could have been done. They could have been done with Jar Jar at that point. Like he served his purpose.
I mean, he was about to go into the stocks and have tomatoes thrown at him for about
Seriously.
6 days for whatever.
Oh, no, they were going to execute him. You said you're done, buddy. They're going to execute him.
It would have been fun to see him get killed. Honestly,
There's a deleted
there's-
scene. So the Gungans decide not to help at that time. They tell the Jedis to fuck off,
because they
basically.
like Naboo.
They don't-
Naboo thinks they're better than them.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Even though they have this absolutely gorgeous, insane underwater world that I wanted to exist in.
I thought that was cool when they go through those translucent barriers that just separate the outside from the inside.
Would have liked to have
Energy
seen
shields.
more, honestly.
But they decide not to help. I think what the Jedi end up meeting up with the Queen and telling her...
The Queen is being taken out to like some kind of concentration camp, is what I gather, and they're just gonna they're like, cool, we're gonna execute your people in front of you until
Unless you
get
sign this treaty that Palpatine wants.
At this point, though, as a kid, I remember being like, the Queen is acting very strange.
Yes, Chase, she is.
And at the point, like when I was a kid, I was like, she's not a very good actor.
Well,
I was like,
There's-
she's not a very good actress.
There's something more to that.
Right,
Well.
exactly. So it all makes sense now as an adult. I was like, oh, that's fucking great. Like,
and this is why, again, I think people really jumped the gun on this movie when it first came out, because they were like, Natalie Portman fucking sucks. She's not good at acting. The Queen of Naboo is not supposed to have emotion.
no one is human. You
No,
know, like-
they're human, but they're not.
Yeah,
and they
right.
don't. They're us, but they're not us.
Right.
Like, and that to that point, like the cultures that exist, yeah, they're gonna have some shit like that where they're just not like, I'm the
Emotional.
Queen of Naboo, and this is all the emotional range I have right now. They intercept the Queen being taken to this. By they, I mean the Jedi and Jar Jar, who really just helps shit along and just fucking screams in the background like a dipshit.
He interrupts everybody and
does.
just like stumbles and bumbles around. What makes it worse is they play the comedic music behind him, like
Oh,
bum,
God,
bum,
that
bum,
Made
like
me
it's,
so mad. It takes you out of it. I don't know of anyone who actually liked Jar Jar Binks.
I don't know.
I knew one person and he's weird.
Yeah.
I think he's in
beats
prison.
me.
But again, he's driving the plot along to a certain degree. Not at this moment necessarily, because we get to the Queen. They get to the hangar with the Queen. They're like, all right, you got to come with us. I'm not leaving my people. Well, they're going to fucking kill you if you stay here, so you got to come with us. Okay. We get to the hangar, and then this is one of the coolest parts because you get to see what, Andrew? What do you see in this fucking hangar?
Naboo fighters, right?
The coolest.
Yeah,
the coolest
ships,
shit.
yeah.
Incredible
Nothing
ships.
like, there was nothing
And
like
there
that.
were like 10 of them in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful yellow and chrome, shiny, beautiful, like, and then they have their transport as well, the Nubian transport.
That one's
which is
even prettier.
So beautiful.
That's just straight like silver chrome.
There was nothing like that in the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
No.
And-
Everything was industrial and like very like hulking, and those are sleek, beautiful starships. This is why this movie is going to hold up, because this is the kind of what you were talking about with Chase, is like, we're making this world and we're seeing what different directions we can shoot off in. Sidetrack. But they go up to the droids, and we have one of the best first encounters you get to see with the battle droids. The battle droids, they're like a trope in the Clone Wars series and also throughout the prequels. They're dumb as shit. They're so stupid. And those are the real funny characters.
I remember seeing it now as an adult, and I'm like, it's looked at like the militarization of people and how people just kind of follow orders. It doesn't inherently mean something's dumb because these are created robots, but these robots are just together to follow orders.
What's the line of the droid when they meet in that hangar?
So Qui-Gon goes up to the droid and he goes, and the droid goes, "Where are you taking them?" And he's like, we're taking them. We have prisoners. We're taking them to Coruscant. Wait, Coruscant. That doesn't compute. Wait, you're under arrest. And then just
Yep.
And
that shit is so good.
That's one of those moments that's just such a pure, funny Star Wars moment. They're all using the same hive mind. You don't have to go and create a new droid character for the battle droids. They're all the same. We get to see the lightsabers again, and that's one of the coolest lightsaber moments in general because like the effects they use there. Oh my god! And then they start battling. Everybody gets in their starships. They get in the Nubian fighters, and they're off.
Basically, they get away. Their ship takes damage in the effort to get away. Not a whole lot happens, but they end up on Tatooine. It's kind of its own lawless thing where the Trade Federation is not going to find them. They can repair their ship and try to get back to. I think they're trying to go to Cloud City, right?
No,
Coruscant.
They're trying to go to
Coruscant. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're trying to go to Coruscant to speak to the council. They're trying to do it really quickly, and then we meet probably the biggest character of the movie.
Yes.
That has also way too many lines. But
Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Here we go. One of the worst written parts in the entire movie, and one of the reasons why people shit on this movie so much, and I will also shit on it too. The kid did an awesome job acting it. He had the shittiest script available of all time. I mean, like,
They didn't give much
bad.
to work with.
No, and he's also a child. He did,
But he did a really good job.
He did a very good job.
Really good job.
I remember
the sad part is no one's shitting on him for Jingle All the Way, but they'll shit on him for the Phantom Menace.
Seriously.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's child actors, friends, are just that. They're children acting, and you can only act so much because acting comes from your personal lived experience. When you're fucking 10 years old, what personal lived experience do you have?
The sad part about this too is Jake Lloyd, the kid that played Anakin, had a rough go at it. Got bullied at school after this movie. Got ripped all over the internet in the early stages of the internet. And he had to end up retiring from acting at 12 years old.
Yeah.
And not only that, but ended up developing schizophrenia. And he'd been arrested several times, had a rough adult life.
This is what happens when you shit on people and you don't understand how this whole thing works, how movies work. The kid had nothing to do with it. He did the best that he could.
That sucks because he could have been a talented actor.
He was.
Yeah, and he was. We're on Tatooine now. They meet Anakin in the shop trying to get parts for their ship, and Anakin's basically trying to help them because he is a savant with ship building.
He's more so interested in Padme. And that's where things start to develop. The bigger story at play here, they have a bond together. He's drawn to her. And he even says, "Are you an angel?"
That was the first thing
one of the first things he says to her. Yeah. And if you remember, he gives her a piece, I think of it, what is it, jojoba wood or something?
It was something that he had carved. It was like a necklace.
And when she gets put to rest in Revenge of the Sith, she has that, and they zoom in on it right here at her chest. And when I saw that in the theaters as a 8th grader going on freshman, I cried. That's the kind of storytelling that's at play here, folks. It's good shit.
It's long term.
It's long term. So moving forward, yes, he's helping them with their shit because he's good at building. He is a savant, yes, but really more so it's because he's attracted to Padme, and they come to find out that he's a pod racer.
Yeah.
And that's
as a child,
and also
no humans
do that.
So not only was he was great at building ships too, he was a savant at flying as well.
Pilot, essentially.
Yeah, he was a pilot at that. Yeah,
Qui-Gon starts putting things together. If he's good at building and he can race pod racers, we should check his blood work because they have a way of checking for metachlorians, which determines your attachment to the Force.
And the higher the count is, the more prone you are.
And he gets on the horn with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon does, after the blood work, and he goes, "Can you run this for me real quick?" "Yeah, I'm running it." "Oh, wow, that's off the chart. She has 700,000.
More than Master Yoda.
More than Master Yoda. Oh, shit. This is huge. You don't understand that when you're watching the originals, that Darth Vader, Anakin, that's who he is. That's how powerful he is. Shit, he's more powerful than Yoda. But They get there. They find out he's good at pod racing. Qui-Gon concocts a plan, or not really concocts, but kind of lets.
It's kind of Anakin. Anakin's like, "I will race and win you money, basically, so you can fix your ship." Because they wouldn't accept whatever currency that the Jedis were trying to pay for anything.
Federation credits.
We're rewind a little bit because we skipped over Watto and we had to just briefly talk about Watto. Yeah. I'm a Nubian. So again, we're hitting some stereotypes.
Got a big old gut.
Got a big gut. He's flying around. He's got like a white beard on. He's got stains and stuff. He's missing half
big
a tooth.
droopy nose.
Blue guy, and he's like, I'm a Toydarian. And because that's right, because Qui-Gon tries to mind trick. He's like, well, I have credits, and credits will do fine. No, they won't. I will, and credits will do fine. No, they won't. What do you think you are, some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like this? I'm a Toydarian. Tricks don't work on me. Only money. So like
that was everybody give Kyle a round of applause for that one, even though he just like hit a huge stereotype on everybody.
It's okay.
Like he's like 3 for 3 right now.
Thank you. I'll get more. Trust me.
Oh God.
Yes. But going back forward again. Yes, they don't accept credits. They have to figure out a way to get their ship fixed. Anakin concocts this plan, and then we kind of start seeing like what's gonna happen next. Anakin's gonna race in the pod. He's gonna go to the
which was
Eve.
Fucking cool. The pod
was so cool.
Oof, we're like on the cusp of it.
Scene.
Like because he enters into the Bunta Eve pod race.
Pretty much like the Grand Prix.
But before we figure that out, really, like Qui-Gon has like a little moment with Shmi, and which is Anakin's mother,
Mom.
and he's like, "So where's the father?" And she's like, "There was no father. I conceived him. I birthed him. I've taken care of him." So there's a lot of Christian religious overtones in Star Wars.
Yeah.
A lot, and this is one of them because he is a virgin birth.
George Lucas is doing, I would say.
Absolutely, 1,000%.
This is like if Jesus was born and then became Satan.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's
like,
exactly what it is. They think they're influencing him for good. If they wanted to bring balance to the Force, they would have let that kid rot on the desert planet.
Yeah,
because like he does bring balance to the Force, just not in the way that they thought.
And they keep saying the prophecies too, like of the chosen one. So and Qui-Gon Jinn is like
he's convinced.
Yeah, he's convinced.
Which again, he's not wrong. He is definitely not wrong. But we get to the pod race, the Bunta Eve pod race. Like this is like character central. We get to see what George Lucas has really been like concocting. There are so many alien characters. He's the only human on the field in this giant adobo arena that they have built. And the announcers are one of my favorite parts of that whole thing.
Two-headed sons of bitches.
And here comes Skywalker. So we get the pod race happens. And how long is that scene? That's like a 20-minute long scene.
Absolutely.
It's massive.
It's about that. Yeah.
And it's every single part of that, watching as an adult, still entertaining.
And each of the pods too. Like I saw a behind the scenes interview with George Lucas as I was researching everything. He made every pod sound different.
Yes.
So and he went through great lengths to do that because he was a car guy.
Yes.
And
he
wanted
about to ask if you knew.
Yeah. And he was trying to make every pod sound different so that it sounded like it was an actual race instead of just a bunch of like, which they could have done. They could have easily mailed that in, and they didn't do it.
When they did that chase, they used a lot of NASCAR back in the 90s. A lot of NASCAR, IndyCar, street racing. A lot of like turbo whoosh and stuff like that just sounds, if you take those sounds out and isolate them, they don't sound like anything in particular. They just kind of sound like their own cool thing. What a genius fucking idea, because that whole scene is so original.
Anakin ends up winning this race, and Qui-Gon's trying to get him back to the Jedi Council so we can start his training, like get it approved by the Jedi Council anyway.
He made that bet with Watto and then doubled down on it.
He did. Yeah. He said, I'll win the boy too if I win the race. And we do meet
Darth Maul
for the first time.
Who scared the shit out of me.
I'm
going to put my hand down on this one. Out of the entire Star Wars universe,
he was one of
Darth
the best
Maul
villains.
was one of the best looking villains. Now, the way that they used him, we'll talk about that. But best looking villains. They could have done more with him.
They could have kept him around.
But neither of you have seen the Clone Wars, and you have not seen
that's
Solo.
True. That's true.
I'm just going to put this. He does not die.
I have seen that episode. We've literally watched
and I knew as I'd had that spoiled for me, but I'm talking as a kid.
Agreed.
We often talk about how Star Wars doesn't necessarily get dark enough at times. It's just kind of superficial. I mean, they do, but Darth Maul was dark. He was demonic. He was creepy.
And they did a lot of zooms on his face where they went wides on everyone else's to give the menacing eye and the stare, his teeth,
his black teeth.
Yeah, and his stare, like it was just so like one of the best characters ever created. Maybe not from a dialogue standpoint or the way they used him, but just the way.
Wish they could have done more with that.
We do meet Darth Maul. Tiny little battle. They get on the. They
kind of
get away.
Escape. Yeah, they kind of are like, we're not dealing with this right now. We've got to get out of here real fast.
But
because
it comes out of nowhere in the desert. It's like, who the fuck is?
Yeah,
this
they're taken back by him, and they're like, they have to regroup and fall back, and so they end up in. Where do they end up next, Kyle?
They go to Coruscant next, and this is a dual-headed approach to the story, which we get Padme, or we know Padme's Padme. But we don't know Padme is Queen Amidala because they do a switcheroo. And if for all of you Keira Knightley fans, yes, that is Keira Knightley. And for all you Rose Byrne fans, yes, that is Rose Byrne in this fucking movie playing her handmaids. Because they all switch. There's one queen, but they all switch, which was a fucking insanely good idea. Really, really good, clever bit of story writing, which we don't know about until the end. But they go to Coruscant. Anakin knows he's going to be separated from Padme, and he's like, "Oh, I don't like you, but like I won't ever see you again." It's a sad moment. He goes into the Jedi Council where we see Samuel L. Jackson. Thank God. What makes these movies for me super, super upset.
Quick bit of trivia. When they were writing this movie, do you know who they had in mind originally to play Mace Windu? Maybe not originally, but like a name they had in mind.
Nicolas Cage.
No.
Who?
Tupac. He died.
He did.
But they thought about Tupac as Mace Windu.
Oh my God, that would have been.
Did you another fun bit of trivia? Before this movie came out, the lightsaber colors were green, blue, and red.
This is the Mace Windu wanted the purple lightsaber.
Yep, because Samuel L. Jackson's like, I'll do it, but like you got to give me it. My guy's got to have a purple lightsaber, and George Lucas was like, fine, yeah, cool. And then we retroactively, Deus Ex Machina just went through and like, oh, there's different lightsaber colors, and they all mean different things, and they all have oranges. Which I like that shit, but like we got to be very honest. They
wrote it in later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like, but thank you Samuel L. Jackson for creating that bit of Star Wars lore that is to this day it's in video games. I hope he gets credit for that. I think he has plenty of money, but like I hope he gets credit.
I don't know. I
think he's done enough Capital One commercials. I think he's okay.
Capital One's his driving force.
I think he'll be fine. With the amount of other
sponsor us.
God, give us money. But we're on Coruscant. We're testing Anakin while Queen Amidala is going to the Senate to plead their case. And this dual-pronged approach where they will meet up again, separately but together. They pretty much come to the conclusion after testing Anakin that he is too old to continue the trials. Oh, darn shit.
And then we find out, too, just speeding along, we found out Yoda comes in, and basically Yoda like lays out that this kid is dangerous and he will not be trained and that he will wreck the Force. So Yoda, with all the hindsight and the foresight of any Jedi Master,
the greatest Jedi Master of all time,
refuses to train Anakin because he can see the hate and anger.
The fear is what he has said.
What did he say? Fear is everything. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to suffering.
Suffering, yeah.
And it's like, and he's like this. It's pretty big actually. But Qui-Gon's like, he needs to be trained. We get to the point where they need to go back to Naboo, and Qui-Gon needs to finish the mission with them because they need help, and they know what's going on now. They know there's something nefarious is happening with the Trade Federation. They're lying. Okay, we got to send a peacekeeping force in there. So
don't they have their moment in the Senate though, where they address the crowd?
I'll be honest with you. This is when I was a kid. I was like, felt like I was watching C-SPAN.
Yeah, a little too heady. It was very
But like again, like this is what sets up everything for
future.
Palpatine.
Yeah.
They do a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum.
Yes.
Which then snaky little fucking Palpatine wiggles his way in and goes, "Well, I don't want to be Chancellor, but like they've nominated me to be the Supreme Chancellor."
He saw this multiple steps ahead.
Yes, he did. He is the ultimate chess player.
Which, by the way, George Lucas hid an Easter egg in the council or in the Senate meeting.
E.T.
The race of E.T.'s there, and they ask him, like, why did you do that? Him and Steven Spielberg were friends in college, and he did it as a nod to Steven Spielberg, but now everyone's like, well, E.T. and the Jedis exist in the same universe now, and the same...
I mean, if we're going to go along that route, so does Alien. So why isn't Alien in... I mean, like, cool. I mean,
my head hurts.
Predators in there.
There's going to be a cross...
like
Star Wars Enter the E.T. It's like there's going to be a crossover event at some point.
But we do get to the point where basically Palpatine wiggles his way in. He's the Supreme Chancellor now. And he now is like, all right, go to Naboo and do your shit. So we land on Naboo, and they need help. Like, they're not going to be able to do this alone. Just, with Queen Amidala and her handful of pilots and Queen's Guard are not going to be able to take on the might of the industrial force of the Trade Federation, who has battle droids, droidicas, AATs, the tanks, all this shit. So who do they go to find?
The Gungans.
Here we go. And this is where we find out one of the coolest things in the entire movie, that we find out who is not who she says she is.
The Queen's handmaiden is actually the Queen the entire time. She steps forward, is like, I'm actually Queen Amidala. Listen to me. This is how shit's going to go. And everyone's just like...
She calls him a motherfucker, too.
Yes. She says, I fuck your mother. I hate you.
And she spits on the ground.
Spits on the ground a lot.
Spits on the ground, yep. And then she stomps out, and then they chase after her, and they're like, no, Queen, come back.
Come back, Queen. Yeah. Queen. Yes.
But she pleads to the Gungans. They all bow down on their knees and like, we are one with you or whatever. And
she bows in front of them. They essentially are like, yeah, we'll give you... We started to do our support. And they essentially just sign up a whole bunch of Gungans and go die.
It's like their entire army.
The entire army, which has some pretty cool technology. So basically, there's a two-pronged attack. They're going to distract the droids out in the open in the fields, while another clandestine group goes into the actual city of Theed, and they try to get to the throne room and capture the Trade Federation people. So that does happen, and they're being distracted. The big droid battle happens out in the plains, while the Gungans have their force fields and everything, their ray shields.
Jar Jar Binks ends up just fucking up everything, but also saving a bunch of lives, too.
He does.
Like, he's just like, there's this great, huge battles going on that is enthralling. It's captivating. And then they just have to jam Jar Jar Binks down your throat, where he's just like hanging out on the side of a tank,
flailing around,
idiot,
and knocking those balls off the whatever, carrying,
just like whoa, look at me, whoa. And like he ends up like somehow taking that tank down by himself.
Because he bobbles a boonga ball, and
thank you. There we go.
It hits him. It hits the droid commander in the face, and it like this, and he goes.
They didn't need the slapstick there. You know what I mean?
While this is happening, the greatest part of the entire movie is now taking place.
They get to the throne room, isn't it?
It's the Duel of the Fates, and this is where we're going to talk about the score. It is one of the reasons why movies suck so hard now is because there's no good scores. There's no themed music. Like, this is like classical music meets movie making, and it makes it memorable. They land in the hangar, they come out, it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, Padme, Qui-Gon, all the mess of them. Qui-Gon goes, Anakin, you just hang out in that ship and don't leave that cockpit. As soon as they walk by they're walking out of the hangar, running out of the hangar to try to get to the throne room. And all of a sudden, these two doors open up, and it's just the choral music starts, and the Duel of Fate starts playing, and it opens up slowly, and you just see Darth Maul unhood himself. He takes out his lightsaber, which we only saw one side of before when he got out. We were like, that's a really long hilt. Weird. Lights up one side, looks over at the two other ones. They light up theirs, and then he lights up the second one, and it's like goosebumps. You're like, holy shit, what's going to happen right now? Fuck. This isn't going to be good. He looks bad as fuck. And then we get into one of the best fight choreography moments of the last 30 years.
I mean, it blew everything out of the water.
And this is a big battle. Like, this whole
choreography goes on for another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, they had rehearsed this so much that George Lucas was actually surprised with Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, and Ray Park's like work on this, because they took it very seriously. And you can tell because like the hatred on his face when they get up to the It's a security apparatus of a certain kind to make sure that you can't get so far into it. They get into this giant disposal shaft, and there's a giant hole in the middle, and there's very little room to maneuver, and they all get caught at certain points in this multi-layered laser door approach. Let's just say
it exists to separate the Jedi, so that way Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn have their one-on-one. They needed somehow to give him the full upper hand. I think it serves its purpose because they get separated, and Obi-Wan has to watch as they battle, and now you're watching as an apprentice watch his master battle a Sith Lord. Yeah, and so it's this kind of grow up in front of your eyes kind of moment.
And that's a really good way to put it. It doesn't take very long. It opens up, and I think Qui-Gon knows as he meditates. And
the stark difference between him and Maul in that situation.
He knows his fate.
Maul looks like a caged lion.
He was seething, and here's Qui-Gon kneeling and breathing and meditating on what the task is at hand. But couldn't be a starker difference.
No, but also Qui-Gon knows what's going to happen to him.
Yes.
And you don't know this necessarily when you're watching it because it hadn't been decided.
Even as a kid, and I was a dumb fucking kid. I was dumb, but I started picking up as Qui-Gon meditating. I was like, he's about to die.
He knows something's going to happen. He's like, this is not... He is going to go do something that is... remember from A New Hope when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader are battling? The only lightsaber duel in that? And he goes, if you strike me down now, I should become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That's what's happening with Qui-Gon. Because that's what Qui-Gon teaches Obi-Wan.
Those stupid little laser doors exist to give that reflection time. Think of them like mirrors. It's reflecting Qui-Gon's... teaching onto Obi-Wan through that laser door.
And he teaches that to him in the moment there. It is the saddest point of the movie because Darth Maul just headbutts him with the hilt of his saber and just whoosh, right through the chest.
Right
in the center of mass, and it's just drops him, and it's just Obi-Wan just screams.
And he can't do anything. He has to wait. He's got to wait another, 15, 20 seconds, something like that?
Yeah. And then this is when it gets cool because while all this stuff is happening in there with them, the other storyline plot points are happening. It's not that dynamic. And Anakin goes inside the fucking star. He's like, don't leave the cockpit. He's like, Master Qui-Gon said not to leave the cockpit.
He somehow puts it in autopilot and flies off into space with the Naboo fighter.
And they're having this big starship battle too. It's...
Because they're trying to take down the Trade Federation spaceship to
deactivate the droids in the ground.
So not really, I don't know about you guys, but this is the one part of the movie where I was like... Because, long story short, Anakin ends up dropping the shields and destroying inside the Trade Federation ship.
He flies into the hangar and hits the power generator or whatever.
Yeah, starts shooting at the power generator. But he was able to fly through off of autopilot. And I know we set this up where he was pod racing, but this is a different level. So for me, I was like, fuck you, Anakin. Fuck you.
See, I liked it because he's fulfilling the prophecy in a sense.
Go back to A New Hope. Your father was the greatest fighter pilot I've ever seen in my life. Greatest pilot ever. He needed God. Of course, he can do that by himself because he's gifted with the Force.
Gifted
but he wouldn't know how to make a lightsaber. He wouldn't know how to use the Force and direct it for better. From what you're saying, Chase, for better or for worse, it does wind up being for worse because he does know how to use it. Pretty not so great. not a good way later, but. I understand what you're saying with it, and yeah, it is a little frustrating in that moment to just be like, why does he just get to do all this stuff? And it just can't sound like it seems easy.
Then we get Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
The best part. And so this is the cool part because Ewan took this so seriously with Ray Park that they were breaking their lightsabers multiple times while doing this. What
did they use? Were they using bats or something?
No. They used the hilts. The hilts were the real hilts, the real lightsaber hilts, and they let them almost design to a certain point. How does this feel in your hand? You want me to change it? There's a lightsaber guy on set with them. But the actual saber part was an alloy, a metal.
It was aluminum bat type thing.
Very thin-ish, easy to move and manipulate and stuff because it's not supposed to be a heavy sword. So they were breaking these multiple times, I believe, during this one. And it was just intense. Apparently being on set for that moment was very intense because it was the culmination of all of this fight choreography they had done for this. And it was... You can tell that it was just it it was so well acted, and he met them every blow. They met everyone, and he had hatred for Darth Maul. He's not supposed to. He's a Jedi, but like that's how he fucking killed him. And by the way, Darth Maul gets severed in half. He gets fucking owned.
When you see his two halves just kind of fall down that shaft, like it's I think it's kind of satisfying.
It was very satisfying.
Yeah,
very satisfying.
It was satisfying, but I was
Brutal.
also, as a kid, I was like, we're not going to see him in the second movie, are we?
He's going to be in Rush Hour 3.
No, I remember when a kid, when he died, I was like, damn, they just got rid of him? Like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's it of, like, the demon-faced, like, Sith Lord?
It says a lot about, like, our, like, personalities here when we're upset that the Sith Lord was thrown down in, like, a trash chute.
But it'd be like if Darth Vader got killed in the first movie, and you're like, oh.
Honestly, I mean, he had the similar impact to Vader in A New Hope.
Yeah,
yes.
we were terrified of Darth Maul like we were Vader. Mm-hmm. I thought Darth Maul was way cooler than Vader too. Like,
for sure,
look-wise anyway.
The double lightsaber, because looks, again, it's everything.
But again, we didn't have that technology to do that, to see what Darth Vader was capable of back in the day. But Darth Maul, you did, and to have him just die like that was
anticlimactic.
I don't know if it was anticlimactic, but they could have done more with it.
Yeah, I mean,
they missed a golden opportunity, maybe.
Yeah.
Which
they know they missed it because they put him in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then they put him in Rebels, and they put him in Solo.
Yeah.
So.
They rectify what they did wrong there. So we get the stereotypical Star Wars like celebration that the victory's over, like every fucking movie we get.
But then we get the funeral too.
Yeah, the funeral, which was sad, of Qui-Gon Jinn.
Cremated him. Right in front of everyone's eyes.
And Obi-Wan was telling Yoda that he's going to train Anakin because he made a promise.
Kyle, for you, what happened to Obi-Wan's lightsaber? The one that Maul kicked down the shaft. Obi-Wan always had the blue lightsaber, so did he craft another one?
Yes, so it doesn't matter. Like, you can get the crystals that you acquire when you go to the special... There's a couple of special places where...
It's called Dick's Sporting Goods.
Dick's Sporting off Cheshire Bridge Road, off Lenox Square.
Lenox Square
Road. How could I forget? But like when they harvest these, I can't remember what the crystals are called. There's like a certain name for them. They occur in a couple different places. So he probably just constructed another one.
That's what I was just curious if there was like lore.
So that pretty much wraps up the Phantom Menace. I actually enjoyed my rewatch of this movie because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, believe it or not. And I'll tell you why I never watched it outside of being a kid. Because when it came around to where we could rewatch it, now we had the VHS. We bought it day one. That's as you should. Yeah, as we should. So I watched it repeatedly as a kid, multiple viewings. But after that, like I remember, as I got older, people in school were talking about, oh yeah, the Phantom Menace was the biggest pile of shit. Like, it was shittiest movie.
Yeah, everyone shit on it.
Yeah, everyone was shitting on it. I remember it got panned by critics at the time. So I remember that sticking in the back of my head. I'm like, yeah, that was shit. That was shit. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it since I developed my own personality.
Yeah, right.
And now it's developed over time more of a cult following. I'd say cult following. A lot of people are like, hey, Phantom Menace is not that bad. And then when we got together to do this, I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to go check this out and see. And I watched it and I was like, yeah, I mean, sure, there's some parts of it that piss me off. There's some parts of it that like I wish I could fast forward through, like everything with Jar Jar Binks. Everything with Jar Jar Binks. Some of it with Anakin. My problem with Anakin is they utilized him too much too. He had too much dialogue. When you have a child actor like that, even though Jake Lloyd did an incredible job, maybe use Ewan McGregor and the great actors around him to elevate his scenes. Yeah. And they didn't do that in this. They left him on an island, and that kind of made the movie kind of suffer there. But overall, I really enjoyed my watch of it, and it made me want to go back and watch the other prequels to see. So, Andrew, what'd you think?
I mean, it holds up. It does. It was a solid watch. I have some issues, obviously, with the script and the dialogue. I wish Lucas had been able to like write this with Filoni or even like Favreau to make
Filoni wasn't even around.
He wasn't.
Neither was
Favreau. No, they weren't.
Or even Carrie Fisher.
Or Carrie Fisher. If he had someone to bounce off ideas and just like fine tune his dialogue and the script in general, it could have been even better. But for what it was a solid immersion into the prequels, and it was good. Those who shit on it, I think they just had incredibly high expectations and wanted it to be this otherworldly welcoming back, if you will.
I do want to vindicate those people a little bit,
Just a
though.
little bit,
yeah, because they just kind of capture lightning in a bottle. I don't think anything will be that good.
No, Lucas needed to get up to the plate and hit a grand slam to like even come close to matching that, and he hit maybe like a double, which is still solid.
You're right.
I would say the whole prequel trilogy is a grand slam, but individually they are not.
That's probably a really good point too.
I would say that A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi are each their own grand slam. And that's kind of like where I think I land with the prequels. Is like they're really good, but you have to understand them as a whole. You know what I mean?
And it ties everything together. So I think Star Wars is not a one movie thing. If I'm going to watch Star Wars this weekend, I'm like, well, fuck, which 4 movies am I going to watch?
Which show am I going to dive back into? Yeah. What episodes am I going to binge? You know what I mean?
So,
what video game am I going to play?
Right, like Shadows of the Empire.
You want to do our ratings here?
Yeah, I think it's time. Kyle, this is your big one.
Yeah, you go first.
You lead us the way. What is your IMDb rating of The Phantom Menace?
Oh, well, I'll do IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and then my own. IMDb, I think is going to be like a 7.2 or 3. Rotten Tomatoes, I think might be higher, around like, I'll probably say like, they might give it like a solid 75-78%.
Are we doing critic score for Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My score for it, I would give it... I'll be pretty basic. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
Huge.
Just because of the nostalgia factor, the sets, the world building, the props, the fight choreography, the score, which we only briefly touched on, huge, made by one of the best John Wayne. We don't need to say anything more.
No.
So that's why I would get. That's why it's getting that.
Andrew's pointing at me here, so I will say my guess on IMDb. I think it started lower, but I think it's risen over the years. But I'm gonna say probably right at a 7.1, maybe. And then I will say for Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score, I think it's going to be low. I think it's going to be like 65% or something like that, because I think the audience score will be higher. For my score, I'm going to say I keep landing on 7.3. I'll even give it 7.5, because I'll give it 7.5 because of the fact that it shocked me and how much better it was.
That's good.
Andrew.
So I'm not going to give the IMDb scores and stuff just because I know what they are. But my personal one, I'm going to give it a 7.1. That's still solid.
Yes.
For me. I'm a tough critic. It's really tough to even get into the 8s or even like the 9s, let alone. But like a 7.1 is good.
Yeah, I agree. So what's our IMDb score?
6.5.
Ooh.
Pretty fucking low.
Oof.
That's not really fair at all.
It's not fair. And
that's definitely of the time. IMDb
very
score.
much of the time. And I think it used to be like a 6.2 or like a 6.1. It has risen a bit. But like 6.5, come on.
What about Rotten Tomatoes?
I don't usually look at Rotten Tomatoes, but I will.
Just for out of the curiosity.
I'm betting it's going to be around like 65%.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Audience score is going to be higher, though. It's got to be.
Even lower.
Oh, man. Is it 50 in the 50% range?
So the tomato meter is 53%, and the audience score is 59%.
Oh.
Well,
so these are the people who are like, it's not realistic.
Or it's not as good as the original.
I think that's primarily where we're going at right now, is a lot of people... I do think some people are going to watch it again and be like, it sucked. I do think that there is that... We have to preface this, like, Kyle, you're a huge Star Wars fan. So you're looking at it from a scope of all the movies at once.
And I'm going off of this, rating this off people that also like Star Wars. If you don't like Star Wars,
fuck you.
I don't like you. Like, I'm sending hate from our little
Kyle is a Sith Lord.
I would for sure be a Sith Lord. Are you kidding me? I would be leveled by a Jedi Master, but I would for sure kill a bunch of people.
Well, there you have it. That's it. We just reached into your childhood nostalgia, pulled Star Wars The Phantom Menace out of of your past and found out it does indeed hold up. We're going to hold on to that one for you. Go watch Clone Wars. Go watch Attack of the Clones. Go watch Revenge of the Sith. Thanks for following us on this journey for Season 1. Look forward to seeing you guys around the bend for Season 2.